Welcome to Building SaaS with Python and Django. My name is Matt Lehman, and on this stream we work on Django apps. And tonight I think we're going to work on getting one of my Django apps from Heroku to DigitalOcean. And I'm doing this because I want a little bit more control over my app, and the move to DigitalOcean will enable me to do that. I actually have some cost savings along the way. So that's the plan. The application that we're working from is JourneyInbox. It's a journaling service that works via email. So a lot of the details won't really be relevant for most of the day, since what we're really going to be doing is down in the guts of the application and doing some like lower level things. I figured before we get too far into it, actually we'll save the pull request for later. There's a bunch of dependencies that I've been ignoring for a while because I had been doing another migration. Why are you prompting? Do this now. No, remind me later. I was doing another migration for my school, my homeschool application that I have. So we're not doing on that. We're going to shift gears. I was planning to do some like changes for the sign up flow for that, but frankly, like there were, I want to get the cost down on this other thing. So my goal here is to get all of my applications onto DigitalOcean, and it should simplify my life. And also give people a chance to see what's going on. Thanks, John. Good to be back. It's been a while. I meant to stream a couple weeks ago, and like the powers that be, the internet was not cooperating. I don't know. It was a mess. But yeah, I got everything updated. It's all good now. So trying to figure out what is left, why this is here. It's been a while since I've been touching the JourneyInbox site. So I think what we need to do is get back to wherever this was at, make some changes, get this back to like a stable space in terms of code, and then move on to the actual migration. You can see my little to-do sticky note here behind my head that the first step is to make a Docker image. So I guess I should outline the process. What are we doing? We're switching to DigitalOcean. What does that mean? Heroku has a bunch of like ways to build your app and handle a bunch of things for you in terms of deployments. It's a platform as a service tool, and it's good at what it does. It's just a little bit more costly. So I'm going to switch to a tool that's called Kamal, which I've demonstrated on stream a bunch at this point, specifically with like a demo, and then also like with some other work for my other app, although I didn't complete it all in here. But this JourneyInbox application, I commit to doing all the code live. So the migration to Kamal will be done entirely on stream, which is different from School Desk. School Desk, I did a bunch of work while I was on vacation, and that's where that is. So yeah, that's where we're at. So let's check out what the heck I've got going on here. I don't even remember where this was, and we'll see what we're going to do. It looks like I was working on jobs. I'd moved the model thing there. I was thinking about, gosh, what is this? Date when activation email is sent to user. What? Okay, it's going to take me a minute here. I clearly was in some other headspace when we were working on this, and I totally forgot. I think what I'm going to do. Oh, I remember. I was starting down the path of updating JourneyInbox's sign-up flow to be email-based instead of like using username and password, I think. So I'm just going to take this code and stash it. And maybe we'll never come back to it. Maybe we will. By the time it changes, I may have a different view on the world. What? Why are you not? Okay, I'm gonna dump it on a branch, I guess, because it's not letting me stash the file because I didn't have it. I had some branch that was separate, so we'll do git stash pop, and we'll do, what are we gonna call this? We'll call this send activation email. This is, I suspect I will throw this away because one of the things I learned about Kamal is that it doesn't really play well with cron. So my current JourneyInbox site uses cron as the way to send its regular periodic emails. And for reasons I'm not going to get into right now, short answer is it had to do with like account permission, like user account permissions, and cron doesn't like to play well if you're not the root user on a Docker image. That doesn't make sense. Don't worry about it. It just meant that it wasn't really on a spot where I could use cron or a simple cron-based setup. But it opens up the opportunity to have a background worker system, and I used Huey for my last app, and it worked great. So I'm going to continue with that. So we'll just take this stuff, we'll add it here, we'll commit it in whatever state it's in, and then we'll move on to the process. So it's getting some stuff updated. It's been a while since I've run. Oh geez. Okay. Sorry y'all, it's gonna take a minute here. So let's open up NVim, figure out did it actually modify? No, it didn't modify anything. And then we'll go to the send activation job, send activation email. Sort that, there we go. Okay, I don't know why I didn't do that automatically. Thought I had this hook configured to just auto update. Whatever, not really interested in spending a ton of time on this branch. What should be the like in progress activation email branch work? I don't know. Doesn't really matter. Again, not really planning to come back to this most likely. So we can revisit that, and it wasn't like a ton of work lost. Okay, so let's talk about where we need to go. I have this issue documented, and I put down like the major things that are there. If you want to check it out, you're welcome to. You're welcome to clone this repo. Like again, all of the code that I work on for this whole project is done live on this stream. So you can literally go to this playlist and see every line except one little stripe thing. I'm going to stop mentioning that in the future because it's annoying. But virtually every line has been done on stream, and so you can see the whole journey. So what we need to do to get Kamal going, the way Kamal works is it works by having a virtual private server somewhere else. I'm going to use DigitalOcean, and you have to make your application work in the context of a Docker image. Doing regular development, I find Docker to be super pain in the butt. So we will continue to do local development on localhost and make our app that way, and that'll be great. But the thing that we need to deploy is actually going to be a Docker image, and that's just like a blueprint for how to run a process. I don't know if you've never worked with Docker. So that blueprint will go up to another server called a registry, and the virtual private server, when we want to do the deployment, will have some Docker thing running. It will go to the registry and say, hey, what's the latest image that I need to run? It will pull that down and then actually like create a process out of that image. It's called that's what's referred to as the container itself. So that container process will then run, and it will run our application. That's the like whirlwind version of what Docker and Kamal does. So yeah, that's how we're gonna go. I think I'm gonna scratch this line about using the DigitalOcean container registry. I am able to use the Docker registry if the image is public. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a public image for this. That does technically mean that someone could pull down my image and create their own version of JourneyInbox. I don't know why you'd go through that effort. And if somebody really wants to like copy me that badly, good luck to them. I'm not going to make it easy for them to do that. So just working in the public, I think, is a good mode in general, as this entire app has been public. So let's take this out. And let's simplify what we need to do. So we need to create our Docker image from the application. And then we'll do some Kamal setup stuff. And I got to do some stuff with where the secrets are going to go. Secrets are currently stored directly in Heroku. I need to migrate those to 1Password. I don't know if I'll get to that today. This is a tricky one. I commit to doing all the code on stream, but there's some configuration stuff. I obviously can't share secrets with you. You can't see my keys for stuff. Otherwise, you could take money out of my Stripe account. So I don't know. There's a bunch of things you could probably do if you did that. So we can't show everything, but I'll do as much as I can. So we might bypass this one, or I'll at least point you to where I would go, and then I'm going to do that offline. And then we were to work on these things. So all of these things in total kind of sums up what is going to happen with the app. Another thing about this is the app that I have right now. One thing that's going to come along with this is a migration from Postgres as my database. That's what Heroku likes to use. It has to do with the fact that the data and the compute, the actual like process running the web server, move around in the Heroku cluster. Well, maybe not the database, but certainly the web server that's running moves around. So you can't store your data on the same thing that's running your web server. The difference though with DigitalOcean is that I'll be able to have my data and my web server be on the same machine. And because of that, I can simplify. The application does not have any complex data needs. So I'm going to simplify down to SQLite. SQLite is a really powerful database. It can actually, I was just seeing, we're gonna at some point use some information that I saw from someone on X. The person on X, I think, is in, I want to say, in the Ruby on Rails community, and their comment was something like they tuned SQLite enough where they have a $5 DigitalOcean droplet, $5 per month, and they're able to get like 60,000 requests per second out of it using SQLite. So it's like plenty of bandwidth. Like the kind of app that I'm building is not UI intensive at all. We will have more than enough power that we need using SQLite. So that's the database we're going to switch to. So in this process of migrating, we're going to go from Postgres to SQLite and from Heroku to DigitalOcean. And then Kamal is going to be the tool that's going to kind of bridge the gap here. All right, so enough chitter chatter. Let's get down to it. I'm going to copy pretty heavily from my homeschool project where I did all of this already. So we will, don't want that there. Go, oh goodness, what's the keyboard shortcut to move that? There we go, okay. So we'll have another tab up here, and that will be for the homeschool app where I will like liberally steal from what I did. I would like at some point to maybe make some of this a template that people could use, like if you wanted to start your own app, but that is a project for a future date. We're going to get to the homeschool application, and we've pulled all the latest. And so I think now we're at a stage where we can start stealing from the Docker file and getting it fit for purpose. Although I say that, yeah, probably. Okay, let's just bring it up. Let's look at the Docker file. There's a bunch of stuff in here that I'm not going to get into detail. You're welcome to read it and learn from what's here. I can simplify some of this because there are things that the homeschool application does that JourneyInbox does not do. Like we don't need to get all of these dependencies for Wheezy print, which is nice. Print's a pain in the butt. But some of these other things about getting UV and, well, I guess we don't need Hugo either. Let me shut up and let's get a new file going. And okay, one more thing. My homeschool project, I wanted to commit this in a separate branch. And the purpose was that in case I needed to update the homeschool project because some of my users found a big bug, then I wanted to be able to deploy and only merge all of my code changes after I'd migrated. With this project, I'm the primary user for the journaling application. I think John has signed up, but not a heavy user, let's say. And there's a couple of other people that have tried it out, but there's no heavy usage that I'm worried about disrupting people and needing to do like a hot fix for some kind of problem. So I think I'm going to commit straight to the main branch, and we'll just assume that we're never going to update the Heroku site again until it's all migrated off. So that's the path that we're on in this process. Okay, so with that being said, we can go to the root of the site, and here we are at our root of the project, and we'll create our Docker file right at the root. There's probably another place we could put this, but I'm going to start with it here. So let's jump over here. Let's take this code and copy it into the Docker file. Oh, boo. Go away. Not what I wanted. Boop, boop, boop. paste. Okay. Did I move either of the projects to UV? Ah, good question, John. I did move the homeschool app to UV, and I guess I did not. Oh, shoot, that might be something that we need to do. All right, if the goal is like let's try and get this dockerfile building, and I suspect in that process it's going to be like, what are you doing? Like this file doesn't exist. And that will get us to a stage where we're going to have to get UV going. We're going to have to get where these packages are going, move some stuff around. There's some changes that are going to be necessary because I do have some of these things, but they're using different versions of different things. I don't know how else to say this. We'll just kind of hammer on this until we go. But first I want to do is like scan through this and take out the pieces that I know are not going to carry over. We know that we're going to have some version of Node. Now, the difference is my other project pinned a specific version of Node, and we can go to npm, I think npm, or Node.js. Let's just do Node.js and find out what's the latest version of Node, and we'll pick the Docker image that's going to work from this. So it looks like they're on like 22, and I was on 18 here, so that's pretty far behind. So actually, let's talk. I needed to give you enough context if you've never seen Docker before to understand how this works. Docker like builds all your stuff, all of the packages that you need, and the configuration that you're required to have, and any certain file directory permissions, and puts that information together into one kind of binary object for the sake of discussion. And the challenge is like this is actually I spent quite a bit of time. I've done a fair amount of work on Docker in the past, done a fair amount of research, and so what's listed here is a little bit more complicated than you might encounter in some different apps. So this is actually considered what's called a multi-stage Docker build, which, as it sounds like, there are multiple stages of work. And ultimately, what's ends up happening is this command at the bottom is a script that's going to run when the process runs. So this is the one stage that is used, and there is another stage that is for building all of the JavaScript stuff. And the reason to have separate stages is because I can build all of I can download and run all of the JavaScript tools, but then not include them in the final image that we're building. And that's important because JavaScript tools, I don't know if you've ever looked at a node packages directory, like it can get really big. And so we don't want, like the final thing that we build, this Docker image, we want that to actually be kind of small. The smaller the better, because it means there are fewer bytes to upload to this registry that holds all the images. It means there are fewer bytes to download on the virtual private server when it's time to do a deploy. So small Docker images are good. It also means some security benefits. If there is less code, because this image, this binary thing, has a bunch of code inside of it. And if there's less code in there, then it's less possibility for security exploits. So there's a bunch of reasons that you want to get out the smallest Docker image possible. And so by splitting things up into a multi-stage build, you basically take like a temporary build space, and then you can take the output of that step and copy it into your final image. So this project has two of them. One is for building the JavaScript stuff that's at this top layer here, and then the second build from here to the bottom is actually for the Python image. So we're going to first start by, well, let's see what version of npm we've got here. That's not what I wanted. Node, what version are you? Okay, on a really new version of Node. So let's change this to Node 22 to match with what we have locally. And then we're going to, this will probably fail when we run because we haven't moved our package JSON anywhere. That's something we'll have to fix up. This npm install step is going to use a cache, and then we'll copy some things that we need in order to have visibility to all the right stuff for analysis. I can explain that more in a minute. And then actually run the build step here from a different directory. So that's all good. I'm not going to modify anything else about that first top level section for now. The other thing we want to do is start getting down to here. So I've got this configured for some variables that tell where we're going to put UV. We don't even have UV yet, so that's not going to work. There's nothing that we need to install from Debian. So, okay, let's talk about images for a second. This particular image, Python 3.12 Slim, that is in reference to a Debian-based operating system. So if you know Ubuntu, I love Ubuntu. Ubuntu is actually a derivative of Debian. Debian is a slower moving project that's very stable, but it's good enough that we can put something very minimal and small and then it does have newer versions of Python. So we can take a stable, the goal of this is take a stable operating system and then layer in a new version of Python and get the best of both worlds here. So that's what is this image at line 15. We've got some environment variables that we're going to use. We don't need to install any packages, so even though we're using Debian, there's no system packages that we have to pull for this project because so far JourneyInbox is very simple. So I'm just going to remove this whole section for now and save the file. We will be using UV. So it goes to the public image for UV, which is listed here. We probably should update this periodically so we're getting a more recent version of UV. In fact, let's take a quick look. What version of UV are they at now? So when I migrated my homeschool project, pinned it to 0.47, but I think this project moves pretty quickly. So they're at 0.52. So let's go ahead and change that to 5.2, just to, at this point in time, have us on something newer. I don't use Hugo for this app. Hugo is the tool that I use for my other project for making a blog, so we can get rid of the Hugo stuff. And then let's jump down to where the Hugo bit is and get rid of that. Similarly, while we're down here, so now we're kind of jumping around, but similarly, I don't use Sphinx for this project. Sphinx was for the help documentation that I had built for the JourneyInbox app, so we can get rid of that as well. Coming back up to here, we're now at this, so we're at this point, we just did that. We're setting the working directory. I am going to keep this creation of an app user account. The reason for that is when you make a Docker image, Docker by default will make an image that uses a root account. And part of the problem is with that is that if there's some problem with Docker and some bad guy figures out how to exploit that problem, then it's possible that whatever user account is in use at the time with that process, then the bad guy could potentially get out of the restrictions that Docker puts on it and do whatever is available to that user account. So if you're root, that basically means at that point you have control to do everything. So the recommendation from like how to lock down a Docker image is to switch at some point. There's a user line here that basically takes the process out from running as root and then demotes it to running as a user account with fewer privileges. And that user account will have access to very little on the file system and very little to the process space. So there's a reason why we're doing this. So I created this particular user. I gave it a specific group ID and user ID. And the reason for that has to do with Docker will need to have access to certain data on the host operating system. Gosh, I didn't realize how much I'd have to get into Docker on this. So if you're not familiar with Docker, that's going to be challenging. So Docker itself kind of runs in as a process that is really constrained. The Docker tooling basically says you're going to run in this special carved out space, and this is your view of the world, and you don't have access to a lot of other stuff. And it's so explicit that if as soon as the Docker container, that process stops, all the data associated with it that might have been written in that process just like kind of poof evaporates. That's a problem for the database. We want to have the code that is running, we want it to actually be able to interact with the database. And then when that process dies, when we do a new version and go from process A to process B, we don't want the data to disappear. So we need to like kind of carve a tunnel that says, all right, process, you are able to talk to this directory on the real operating system, like that has a lot more control. So the way that we're going to do that is by specifying that a specific application user, and then line up the IDs so that the container has an ID, and eventually the actual VPS, the machine itself, will have a user with the same IDs. And by having the same IDs, it tells Docker this user in the container has permissions on these directories, these volumes is another name, that are outside of the container. So that's why I'm specifying a specific ID. We can actually see the 222 is like used in, well, shoot. It's used in a couple places. It's hard to find here in this repo. Don't worry about it. We'll get to that later. And you'll see how they're connected. There's a script that generates the host operating system account. And then we also create the same user account inside the container. And so those two things can match up. And the user will have access to the directory where the SQLite file will be. If that doesn't make sense, sorry. That's about as deep as I'm going to go into it. If you have any questions that are very specific, I can answer those. This particular run thing was an issue that I was having with WheezyPrint. So WheezyPrint's not in this project, so we can just delete it. I'm not going to talk any further about it. We are going to have a PyProject TOML. That's for UV. UV is a packaging tool that is kind of taking the Python ecosystem by storm, I think. I think it's growing in popularity very rapidly. But it's a very fast tool written in Rust. It's replacing my typical pip workflow. So if you're familiar with the Python ecosystem, probably know pip very well. And this is a tool that we're using. Slant Shine, what am I making? Well, what am I making? I'm not making anything. I'm migrating. So I already have a product. This is the product right here. It's called JourneyInbox. It's an email tool. It's a journaling tool that works via email. So the way it works, you're welcome to sign up. You can see there's a free trial here, so no cost to you. The way it works is you sign up, and as soon as you sign up and confirmed your email, you start getting daily prompts to say, what happened today? And you start creating a journal via your email. And you respond to the email, and it's a very simple way to record thoughts daily. Oh, sure, yeah. Thank you for the, yeah, absolutely. I can share the link. So JourneyInbox.com. So this app is very simple so far. If you do create, if you sign up, don't be shocked that there's not much there. Most of the interface is actually through email. There's not much UI yet, but the core functionality works. But the app currently lives on Heroku, and I'm migrating it to DigitalOcean. So that's the short version. So we don't really need to get too much beyond this, but anybody is welcome to check out the details of how that works. All right, so let's come back over to the Dockerfile. Can you contribute to, I don't know what's to contribute to. There's really not much there. If you dig into the repository, and so the other thing that I make with this project is all the code for this project is done here. I haven't even considered if people want to contribute. I don't know how that would work, to be truthful. But you're welcome to go check out the code and see what it looks like. All right, let's return to the Docker file and see what's left. So we've got some stuff for libuv. This sync command is actually installing the packages that are going to be in the final image. Then we take all of the code. This dot is for the current directory that matches to the root of the current working directory for wherever the Docker file is. So basically all the content. And it's going to then copy that into into the app directory inside of the container. So that's what happens here. Finally, then we reach, Akil, good to see you again as well. Thanks for joining in. Then we reach back to that previous stage. So I told you earlier that we have multiple stages here. We've got this Node stage and we've got this Python stage. And notice that I used as Node.js. I could have called this anything. I could have called this FizzBuzz, I don't know. I could have called it whatever. It doesn't really, it's just a label. And the label is then used for this copy command where you can use this from attribute and specify which other stage you want to reach into. So we basically go back to that stage that we previously built and said, hey, give me the static site CSS file and copy it into the static directory that is inside this container. So that's what's happening there. There is some configuration here. I bet that a bunch of this is actually not necessary for this particular project. Shoot, I don't even know which of these attributes will be necessary. So maybe what we'll do is take this chunk, we'll comment it out, we will move it above, and let's see, once we get this far, then we can find out which things are actually needed. At the bottom, then we set an entry point, which I will get to later, like this bin directory doesn't exist, and then we'll run a bin server. The bin server script is going to be an actual G-Unicorn process, but it's also going to be the place where migrations run. Or maybe, no, it's in one of these two scripts. I think it's in actually this one, Docker entrypoint. So one of the things that Heroku does that's nice out of Heroku is when you're working with the Django application, you have the need to periodically modify your database. You want to add some new table, you want to add some new column to a table, whatever. And you need to be able to say to Django, I'm going to change from this schema to that schema. This is called a migration. And Heroku knows that migrations are a thing. It knows about Django. And so in its deploy process, it will go through, and before the next version of an application goes live, it runs the migrate command. And we don't have, if we're basically taking on more work for ourselves by switching to DigitalOcean. And so we need to have some kind of similar feature. And the way I did that was I followed the way that the Rails project does this. The Kamal project that we're going to use is actually first started for the Rails community. And so I tried to mirror, they've got the same problem, right? They've got databases and schemas and all that sort of stuff. So there's a migrate command for Rails as well. And I followed how Rails did it for their default configuration to actually do migration. So that's where this is all going to go. Okay, so that's our Docker file. There's a lot in there. I totally expect this to fail. I'm also hoping that Docker is not going to complain about needing some kind of update. I haven't started it yet. So let's see. We're going to do, what are we going to do? I think where we need to go is we need to start running Docker builds and see what we can just generate here. It's showing me homeschool. Okay, great. Docker seems to be started. So the Docker daemon should be ready, and we should be able to start here. Got Docker Compose stuff. So I did some, I'm not going to set up Docker Compose yet. I'm going to try and just build this from some base Docker commands and see how it goes. The other thing, actually, one more thing. It's important to check on some file size stuff. One attribute of Docker that is important is to ignore, there's a bunch of things you want to ignore. Like you don't want to, like I said earlier, you really want to minimize the amount of data that you include in your image. So this Docker ignore file tells Docker like, hey, this anytime you encounter this directory or that directory, don't bother including that stuff. That's not what you want to keep in there. The build process should have like a clean space to work from. So let's take all of this, and it seems like a good starting point. We'll go over here, we'll make our own, it's called Docker ignore is the file name, and we'll paste that in here. My project here is not using MyPy and is not using this blog thing, so that's probably good enough for now. Okay, so let's try building, see how things go. Again, I fully expect this to blow up very quickly on us, but we gotta try. That was oddly loud. So Docker build, and when you specify Docker build, do I have any in here? Yeah, I do. I apparently did some other stuff. Did I remove the instructions to update Ubuntu? I'm not, John, I'm not sure what you're referring to. Do I have some instructions somewhere? I might. Maybe I do. I'm not sure. This will go away. I got rid of, if I haven't gotten rid of graphiz yet, I'm going to delete it. It's just not worth keeping around. It's just a pain. And it doesn't actually help that much. So the thing we're trying to do here is we want to build, we need to set a tag. The tag is the identifier that Docker knows how to like associate with whatever image you make. So we'll call this journal. And since we're here on this machine, let's just call it local. And then you need to specify like the place to pay attention to. So we want to do this current directory, and Docker by default will look for dockerfile. You could specify it, I think, with the -f flag, but we shouldn't have to. It should just say like, I found a dockerfile, I'm going to use that. Let's try this and see how it works. So it immediately blew up in a way that I totally expected, and that's because it's looking for a front-end directory that does not exist. Okay. The reason is with the Heroku system, like if I do a list on this, you can see there's a lot of top-level files here, including the package.json and package lock.json, as well as, well, where is it? I thought there was another one. Maybe not. No, maybe not. Okay. So these two files are the things that I expected to move to a front-end directory. So let's return here. You can see I've got this separated. And the idea with, I mean, this is just convention for me. This is not like the way you must do this or any expectation. I created a front-end directory to say like, here's where stuff related to the front end of my application. The front end is like the user interface, right? And so everything in my package.json file is for the purpose of Tailwind. Ah, looks like I even already have a front-end directory. So that's cool. Excuse me. That's cool. We might have to tweak this a little bit to get this to run. And again, we're running this from Docker here. So if it doesn't work, it's going to blow up and say like, I don't know what this is. So we can kind of, I do this sometimes, I call this error-driven development. Looks like I lost my little indicator of how many are watching the stream. So let's see if I'm still actually streaming. Yep, okay, cool. I guess my indicator just died, not the actual stream. That's good. So let's start by cleaning this up. We want to, it's a nice benefit of this migration to Kamal is that I can stop keeping so many things in this top level directory where Heroku expected everything to be, and put stuff where I want it to be. So let's move package.json to the front end and move package lock.json to the front end as well. I want to check for areas where I might have package.json. No. Or really what I want is I want to do, find npm. Oh, get out of here. So I have it, okay. I have it right here in my procfile dev, so that's going to need to change as well. Let's go keep some notes here as well, so I don't forget everything. So we're setting up the Docker image. We need to make sure, ensure local development works. Yeah, it may not. Normally you run a system update. I'm reading your message here, John. You run a system update on your server images, and server images can get out of date, or security updates, another system file. Yeah. There are problems with like version management with Docker. There are multiple ways that I think we can deal with this. One is, I want to say, Dependabot can do Docker files. Dependabot Docker? I think it's, so we can, if we want to, we can have, just like we get package updates with Python, I think we can do some Docker config here, so that if we need to update to a newer version, it will say, sure, yeah, I found this version in your Docker file, and now it's a newer version. I don't know how much I want to do that, frankly, because some of this I want to be controlled. And I was very specific. Like, I didn't say, like when I did the npm version or the node version command earlier, you see that it says 22.5.1, right? And I could be very specific about what I want, but instead I just said node 22. Because frankly, with this project, at least the way I'm running Node here, I'm not building a node-based application. I don't really care what minor version of Node I'm on. I care probably enough that if there's a major version, that's when I want to bump. But having it at 22 is enough, so that when, I think this is basically a moving tag, so that when the team behind Node.js, when they put out 22.6.0 or whatever, they will move the 22 tag to that latest thing. So you kind of get the benefit of, we're going to be on major version 22, and then the other bit that for Node versions for any version in here that matters is this one right here of 3.12. There is the one that I probably maybe regret is this one, although I guess it's possible that Dependabot might be able to figure out copy lines as well if they come from a different image. So I think we're good on all of those things. And then since we're not installed, so as you're saying, I see you wrote the Debian Ubuntu file, so that would come from modification, anytime there is a 3.12. whatever bump, that will come along with this. And so this tag is it's semi-stable, is I think how I would view it, and should do what we want for now. Okay, so we've got the one place where npm is called, that was in the procfile dev, and then in the actual Docker file itself. Let's go ahead and add these to the stage. I think I see what you're saying about the actual host VPS. Yes, there are some trade-offs with the approach that I'm taking, that I'm going to essentially lock down the VPS. The strategy I'm planning to do is, when you do Heroku, you get the benefit of being mostly on the latest, but you still have to update there is actually maintenance involved. They don't update the operating system underneath you. They still have to jump from, I think they call them stacks, is the term that Heroku uses. So there's a Heroku upgrade process as well. So you don't get away from the Heroku process or the upgrading process by using Heroku. So we still have to deal with upgrades. My philosophy, or the way I think I'm going to do upgrades on this particular setup with DigitalOcean, is create a VPS and lock it down enough that it would be super hard to get into, i.e. you'd have to get my SSH key, which I hope is quite difficult, and then have the packages be up to date there. Maybe there'll be a cadence in which I update packages on the VPS, maybe not, because my plan is maybe on an annual cadence or something, spin up a new VPS entirely, take the backup from one VPS, which actually has the data files, turn off Kamal for a minute, take the site, do it in scheduled downtime, migrate over to the new VPS, spin everything up, and do that. So that is my plan for now. So it's maybe a little bit more complexity than doing a Heroku upgrade, because a Heroku upgrade can be as simple as a stack upgrade command, but there's also upgrades of Postgres databases, a bunch of things you have to do. You're always fighting upgrades. Software is constantly updating. Okay, we've got this now with the package file moved. So I think we're going to get past, I think where we're going to get to is we will get past here. It will probably do the npm install just fine, and it will probably do the copy of the front end and the templates just fine, but I suspect it will fail here. The reason being is that now that this package.json file is moved into the front end directory, there's not like a front end directory inside the front end directory, so I think it's going to fail to find these files. I actually want it to fail. I want to see, see that we got this right. So let's continue on our path and see how it goes. All right, so we have moved beyond. Oh, interesting. Did it run? Maybe it didn't bother running. That's weird. What did it run? Did it run our let's look through these here. So we've got our stage 1. Here's the node stage. It only ran this far and then had some of those things cached. So I guess we ran into, before we even got to the resolution on what happened with this, it's like I can keep going on this other steps in here, and I hit a problem. And so before you even get to the problem up here, you need to resolve the problem down here. Okay, that's not what I anticipated, but that's fine. So let's see, do I have UV installed here? I probably do, because I think I did some work on stream with this. I do, cool. So let's go ahead and get UV going. And what's the fastest way to do this? I think we need, I want to say, okay, well, we'll just keep committing stuff. Yeah, this stuff is harmless. Well, not harmless. Actually, it'll break the Heroku deploy, but as I said, we're not gonna go any further than that. So let's commit this as a checkpoint, and say start dockerfile. Yeah, just start dockerfile, and this is part of 239 for 239. Okay, about an hour in. Cool. So I don't need to push that up yet. But I want to check out one more thing. We're gonna have to update. Phooey, blah 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 blah. We got a bunch of stuff to do. This list is gonna grow, so we need to update CI. Use UV at some point. But let's just get started with the UV part. So UV has an ability to say UV init, I believe. Whoops, it's already a prime project Kamal. Boo. That's interesting. What do you do in that case? The Pi project Kamal has like other tools in it, but we need UV stuff. So it's not wanting to start because it's like there's already something here. And I wonder if there's an option to say, like, just give me what I want, the parts that matter. Okay, well, we're gonna have to go steal from over here. Fine. So we need to specify at least a name and a version, and we think we can also specify the Python version. The dependencies will come in a minute, as well as the dev dependencies. These are the main sections of what we're going to require. This we're looking at the homeschool application in case you're like, what the heck, where is he? So let's take this stuff, we'll copy it over and put it here. It looks like we already have the requires Python, so we'll keep that. We'll change this to journal. We're not actually publishing anything, so we can leave this at 0.1.0, but you must have a version requirement there, which is kind of good, to be honest, but whatever. I can't control all the variables. We want this dependencies thing, so let's paste that in here and start it as an empty list. UV will update this list for us as soon as we install packages. Oh yeah, I could have. Yeah, you're right. I could have renamed Pi project, and then dealt with like pulling the stuff back in. So that would have worked too. And then finally, let's take this section down here. So previously, with the way I was dealing with stuff, specifically tooling, is you can see I have two requirements files. This requirements file is my development tools, and this requirements include file is all of the like logical packages that I want to use. These are things that I actually import in my project. This requirements txt file is the transitive closure. It just means every top level dependency that I have, and then all of their children, the whole graph of every Python dependency that's used. UV will generate a file called the UV lock file, which will be equivalent to that requirements txt file. So what we need to do is use there's a UV add command, and there's a way to do this like from a requirements file. It's like an easy way to migrate. So let's do this UV add requirements file, and then give it the requirements.in file as what we want to add for our dependencies. So UV add r requirements.in, and that should pull everything we care about. And it's also going to generate a lock file in this process. So now we have we've got our it's added in all of our dependencies here. That's great. It is also added in all the lock file, which is it's probably a pretty gigantic file. Yeah, let's see if we add those to the stage and do a come on, gdca. I want to do a git diff of the commit and then do a diff stat on that. All right, so it's 474 lines for that UV lock file, and that's not even with our development tools yet. So these are the things that our app depends upon. And in fact, that's probably enough, frankly, to get beyond this step right here. So you can see we've got the no dev flag. So this is going to tell UV, don't try and install any of the development dependencies. But we want to do development too. So I want to go ahead and grab them before I delete that requirements, those requirements files. So let's do this. We want to do, let's take a look at UV add again. There's a different flag we need to use to say that these are developer dependencies. So we need to use the --dev. I don't want to mix these things together. So let's do UV add --dev, and then say the requirements file, and the one we want to use this time is this one. And that should take all of those other things, and oh boo, get out of here. It didn't do it because graphiz is in there. And this is why I said I'm tired of using graphiz. I don't want to deal with it. It's annoying. It's got a bunch of C flag dependencies. So get the heck out, graphiz. We'll just nuke that there. And then we'll also come in here and get rid of graphiz here. So we're going to not even deal with that problem. And then while I'm thinking about it, go into the make file and get rid of the graph command, because we just aren't going to use it. Also, probably not going to use MyPy for this project, so it can deal. And then I added a new test target because if I don't remember the fcub target, I do, but it's more logical if you see make test. None of these things in here are right currently, so don't worry about that. But that's enough. That should be enough to get us to like try this again and then not complain about things it needs. Okay, cool. So if we jump over here, now we see we've got Factory Boy, pip tools, all of these things. Whoops, we don't need pip tools. UV replaces pip tools, so we can get rid of that one. Yeah. So UV remove pip tools. Okay, I know. Oh, thanks. You knew what I wanted to do. Why didn't you just do it? All right. So we've cleared out some stuff, some junk in the make file and the readme, and updated our packages. Now the problem is, if I try and run make test, it doesn't know where PyTest is because we're not running in a virtual environment. I haven't activated it. Now we're also switching to UV. So UV has a different way of running things. We need to update. Here's where it's probably worth a little bit of time to update how we run these things. The short answer is we need to prepend UV run on some of these commands. And we're not going to deploy this way anymore. We're going to use Kamal deploy, so we can get rid of that. And then we need to change the way that the local development is running. So I'm not going to deal with that right now. So for the moment, we can just say UV run on that one for CI, but we haven't fixed that yet. And then UV run here as well. So UV run, the idea behind it is like, what's the difference in behavior? Deb dependencies is soon to be deprecated. What are they doing with it instead? Oh, okay. Well, that's new for me, John. I didn't know that was happening. Cool. Things change all the time. So what were we doing previously? Previously, I would come in here and I would say source. This is like, you wouldn't even see this when I would start, but I'd create a virtual environment, and we have it probably in here. There's a vn directory. And so that's where I would have all my development packages, or all the packages in general. So I'd activate that from my shell, and then I would be able to run commands. With UV, the idea is don't do that. Instead, prepend everything with this UV run command. And at first, that sounds like a downside. And I don't like aspects of it. I don't like having to do all of my Python commands through another command. That's less cool. But there are some benefits that come out of it that are worthwhile. One benefit is I never have to think about whether my current environment is in the right state, i.e. it has all of the right packages installed. So let's say in a future state, GitHub gets to a point where it is now supporting Dependabot for UV. It's not quite there. There's like an open PR issue that they're trying to resolve. But I've done some Dependabot updates. And then I pulled down, but then I want to test my stuff. Well, in previous versions of this, I would have to do a pip install, and then I could actually run the commands again. But when I do UV run, UV has like a consistency check and looks and says like, is my current virtual environment, which it actually puts here, it's in this .venv directory, that's the name it uses, is that consistent with the state of the UV lock file? And if it's not, it goes ahead and updates that before running the command. So you never have to worry about, am I up to date with whatever is the latest that's been put in the repository. So now that we've added UV run, we should be able to run make test, and it's going a little slower this first time because it's going to install all of those packages on your behalf. And then it runs, finally, it passes that along to PyTest, and you can see we've got coverage working here. So that's cool. So we're now, let's not forget the mission. The mission here is to get the Docker file and get it running. So we got blocked here previously because we didn't have PyProject TOML and the UV, or we did have PyProject TOML, we didn't have UV lock. And then, so it couldn't get past this step. The reason, if you're the observant among you, might notice that there's two copy lines here. One is like copying just the PyProject and TOML and UV lock file, and the other is copying all the files. The real reason behind that is it's an optimization for Docker files. And the idea is this, is like, if anything, like if this modified, so Docker has some stuff that can checks for modifications to files. And if it's able to detect that nothing has changed about the files, it says, oh, I don't need to do anything. I have essentially a cache of what was done before. And so if this is cached and this run step after that is also cached, it can continue on. But you can view this as like cache busting. So let's say I've changed one Django view file. And if I put this copy line up here, then that means that like this cache of all of this copy, any file change in here is going to trigger this to have to rerun. So you want to do, when you're doing dependency installation, you want to like just do the very bare minimum that you need to get those packages installed, and then copy over your app code. That's the idea here. So that's the sequence. I think what we're going to get to at this point, if I'm predicting this correctly, we will get through this step. We'll get past the UV sync command. We'll get past this, and then we will blow up here. The reason being is that there is more to pull from this. This site CSS file is not done. This Node.js thing is not done. So it's going to come back up to this stage and be like, oh, I got to keep going, and then run this particular run command. And that run command is going to blow up, I think. That's my prediction. My internet is not super fast, but once these Docker images are downloaded for the first time, it will then be cached, and I won't have this problem in the future. So apologies for you. I'm in the basement of my house, and I just don't have great super high speed down here. It's fast enough to do streaming, clearly, but could be faster. I think my download rate's like 80 or 90 megs a second. I'm not sure. Abraham, thanks for the encouragement. Appreciate that. It's good fun. I do enjoy this stuff. As like I like getting kind of, these details are interesting to me. Maybe not everybody appreciates them, but I certainly like them. Okay, cool. Exactly what I expected. So it's looking for a front end directory, and why did that fail? Because there, at first blush, there is a front end directory and a front end input file. So you might hit this and be like, what is going on? The reason is the prefix. So we run the npm command with a prefix directory, and basically you can think of it like, I don't know if it actually does this, but it takes the npm process, starts up, and it does like a change directory into the front end directory. And at that point, when if I had gone into the front end directory and I do like what's in here, there's not another front end directory here. So when we have the package JSON file and we're looking for input.css, it says I don't know where that is. So if we get rid of this and get rid of this, then that's good. The other bit about this is that we do need to go now up. So like it was assuming it was running at the root of the whole repository, but we've gone down into the front end directory, but we don't want to output the site CSS file inside the front end directory. We want to go up into a different static CSS file. So let's do .. to go navigate up that's what the ... does. Goes up and then looks for a static directory and puts that in there. So those are the changes we have to make. Similarly, we're going to need to do this for this here. So get rid of front end and then go up. Okay, that should be enough now to get through that step. Is it going to get through all the way to the bottom? It might be like, that might be it. Oh, yeah, maybe not. So I think it might fail. There's probably going to be some portion of the collect static that's expecting an environment variable that we don't have. That's where we'll pull in either one or maybe not any of those, maybe something totally different. But we need to have a definition there. So let's try it. Let's see what's next. Whoops. Nope. Oh, we're in the front end directory. Try again. So, oh no, what happened? Specified input file, front end input CSS. Did I not save it? Oh, I didn't save. Okay, that's my bad. What file exists? I know it exists. Okay. Get out of here. Package JSON. Okay, I think what was happening, it was trying to write back to the root directory after I'd moved it. My editor didn't keep that stuff, so that's my bad. So let's delete that, and now you can see it at least on one line, so you're like get to see the whole command. Delete front end, and do relative up. Go to static. Okay. Dockerfile side by side. We should now hopefully get past. Why are you Okay, now I'm getting annoyed. What is your deal? Okay, we're just gonna get out of NeoVim entirely. I don't feel like figuring out what's up with that buffer. Package, JSON, good grief. Front end, delete, delete, up, delete, whoops, delete, relative, up. Finally, okay, dockerfile side by side. Okay, we should get through that step, get forward. Here we go. Okay, as expected, it's complaining about the next thing that's missing. Okay, so this is a kind of a weird oddity for the way that my app is set up. It's just reality. The app, when it's trying to run, it needs to run this collect static command. The collect static command's job is to take static files from this app and that app and that app and put them all together and stuff them into a particular directory that's in the configuration. But the collect static command runs through the Django settings, which we have here. And the way that Django settings are set up in this project is like there are certain settings that are required. Secret key is being as an example of them. Oh man, I'm using, oh gosh, I forgot. Okay. Let's add one to the list. We want to switch as well to environs, called simpler project for doing environment configuration. But I don't know that it's not strictly necessary for the migration, but it'll make our lives better. It's a better tool. Like it took lessons from Django environs, which is the one that we're currently using, and advances it. But so that's where we're coming from. So we are gonna run this in a loop where I'm gonna like add a secret and try and run it again, see what it complains about, do it over and over again. There's probably not too many of them, but let's start with the secret key. And here it doesn't matter. Like if you're looking at this like, oh man, what are you doing? Your secret key? This is not a real secret key. The secret key is not actually used as part of the static file generation process. It's just a value that must be populated. So the reason it must be populated is there's no default listed up here. So when the environment like looks for it, says like, I don't have a default, I need a value, so you can't proceed without it. So that's what's happening in this particular scenario. So we can do that. We can try building again, and hopefully I saved that file. So yep, I saved it. So it says like, okay, now you need the admin URL path token. Again, this is not something that's strictly needed. It's something that I put in this project. So we'll do admin URL path token, and I'll make sure it's like very clear that this is a not real. So it's a fake token. Like it doesn't matter the value here. So we'll put that there. You might have noticed the backslashes here. All of these run things. This is all like setting some environment variables before the process line runs. You could run this like in one line and delete all the backslashes, but I want this to be readable. So we're using backslashes and indentation in a way like that. All right, let's try run again, see what's next, see what else blows up. So now we're missing the Stripe live secret key. So we'll take this one was already here, we can do that. So Stripe live secret key, let's do it again. And then it's missing the Stripe test secret key. And it's probably gonna miss the Stripe publishable secret key, but let's just keep going. This is a pretty easy process to get through here. Stripe live publishable key, yep. Okay, whoops. Stripe test publishable key. Oh, that was the Stripe live publishable key. Oh, interesting. Stripe. A variable that I don't have in the other project. It's curious. Live publishable key. So this is going to be PK live. Values don't truly matter, but hopefully that's clear. Run it again. Whoops, that's Vim, wrong one. And getting there, DJ Stripe webhook secret. So you can see a lot of these I've already done previously, so it's more like copying from one into the other. But I just want to like make sure that I'm getting just the minimal set. I don't want to copy some stuff over just because I've got it from another project. That would be wasteful. So now that's the SendGrid API key, and that can go here. I think we're getting, there's a lot fewer things needed on this project, so I think we're getting close to the end. Anymail webhook secret. Ooh, that one's not in here. That. Email. Okay. Anymail webhook secret. Anymail hook secret. And that equals secret to everybody. Anybody tell me where that reference is from? Quiz time. ID field salt. Nobody? All right. I know there's some lag on the stream. Give you another minute. Okay. Hash ID field salt and Sentry DSN. A lot of these clearly are coming over from the other one. Sentry DSN. We're probably going to need Sentry enabled. Add DSN. I'll forget you. That's probably what the Sentry enabled is for. Tries to actually like connect to Sentry. So stop that. Technically, that should have been from strictly alphabetical. Well, I'm not strictly alphabetical. This after this, right? The answer is Legend of Zelda. A little like you go into you bomb or fire some moblin's house, and says it's secret to everybody. You get some rupees. Fun part of my childhood. Okay, so we have now, what do we have? We've gotten through everything. The problem is now it's not going to work. That's the truth. So the reason it's not going to work is the entry point here is like this script doesn't exist. This script doesn't exist. So the way Docker works is it gets to the bottom and says the command that's going to run. So it's going to like spin up this whole little cluster of files that you put together inside of an image. And it's going to look in this thing at these paths are kind of directory names that you've provided for the image. And it's going to look for this executable at app bin server. But we copied all the local files into app. And previously there was nothing in app. That was just purely for, you can see this line here on line 28 is what creates the app directory. So there's nothing in here except for what we've copied in. And if we look in our own project configuration, you see there is no bin directory. So if we try and run this Docker image, it's going to be like, I don't know what you're talking about. This thing doesn't exist. Now, it's going to, okay, I guess we can, while we're here, we can turn off all these other things, right? Yeah. So it's gonna, if we try to run it, it's not gonna be happy. But it's hard to run. I find that it's harder to run Docker files than we would like, and that's because, well, it just is compared to using Docker Compose. Docker Compose is some tooling for, like, if you have other things that you need to run. Let's say you are in a more complex setup. We said we're going to use SQLite for this project, but if you were going to use Postgres, or maybe you also wanted to use Redis or whatever is replacing Redis. What is it? What's the? Oh, there's a front runner for what people are going to use instead of Redis. Valkey, something like that. So maybe you've got some things like that, some other services that need to talk to your app. If you're going to use like straight up, I mean, we could try and do like a Docker run on the image and try and run it. Actually, so again, maybe you haven't seen Docker before. So let's do Docker PS, nope, Docker images. And you can see I've got some images here. Some of these are not interesting, not what you care about. But this is the image that we just built. You can see that it's the way it was tagged is like the first part of the name was considered the repository, and then we give a tag as like the identifier after it. And then it creates some kind of hash or SHA to identify the image specifically. It tells you when it, and tells you how big it is. This size is pretty good. It's not going to be too much to upload to the registry. That's good. So you could then do a Docker, I think you could do a Docker run command where you have, and we might be able to do this here, journal local. This might work. Okay, but it fails in actually the way I expect it to. So it tries to start your container image and create a process out of that, and uses that as, again, I referenced this as a blueprint a while ago. So it takes the blueprint and sort of like builds the house. The house is the process. And looks in that set of instructions, and it tries to execute one of these instructions. It says like, hey, wait a minute. You wanted I'm going to butcher this metaphor, but I'll go with it anyway. You wanted a window on this side of the house, but you wanted the window to be triangular, and you didn't give us any triangular windows. I don't know. It's a really stupid analogy, but so there's this file that's missing, and so the Docker the daemon process, the process that's managing the whole setup here, is what comes back and says like, I don't know what to do. Your instructions don't make any sense. So we need a couple of other files that we need to pull from the homeschool project that are going to be the home for some of these things. So let's start with creating the bin directory. So we've got to put a directory here called bin. It's going to have a couple of files in it. And so we can go over to the bin directory. You see I've only got two different scripts in here. We're going to need both of them, and I'll go over each one. So here is our bin directory, and then here's where you start to see how the app is actually going to run. So previously in the setup over here, whoops, we could look at the proc file, and this is how Heroku knows what to run. And it says, oh, you want to run with the gunicorn web server, and you want to run this particular WSGI file, and you want 2 workers, and this is your log file. Great. If we go over to my script, you can see it's largely the same kind of thing, but it's put in a bash script. It's the only difference. And there is one here about binding to the broadcast port with port 8000. That was necessary for reasons that we don't really need to get into. So we want to take all this stuff, and we want to come over here and create the server script and paste the content here. And if we come back, see, but we do need to make it executable. So we do a change mode, and we say +X. That's for give it the executable bit. You can see the file permissions on it right now. If we do an lsal bin, so I don't know. I'm not going to do a whole tutorial on how directory permissions work, but the X. So you can see at the X is missing in this, oh geez, it's hard to highlight. In this column, and this column, and this column, the directories have an X on them, but this file does not. The X specifies whether you can run this particular file like a process. And right now we can't. So if we try to execute the process, it's not going to let us. So if we said we're at the directory and we said bin server, it's going to say permission denied. It doesn't give you much beyond that, but you know it's immediately a permission issue. If, however, we did a change of its mode and say plus X, the change of mode is like permission stuff, and plus X gives the executable bit to all of the different users. So this is actually 3 different groups or 3 different users, like I don't remember the order. One of these is group, one of these is everyone. I think the last one is everyone, and this is like self. Again, don't have time to go through all of how Unix permissions work or Mac OS permissions work. Now if we try to run this, it would run, but the unicorn, it's not going to find unicorn, so it's going to fail on that, but the script itself ran. So you need that because Docker is going to try and run it. It's going to run into the same permission problem if you don't give it the executable bit. So we've got now the server script, and then we've got the Docker entry point thing. So the Docker entry point, well, let me just do this really quickly, and then I'll speak to it. All right. Thank you. Owner group world. That's what I thought it was. I had a brain fart where it's like, is it the other way around? But yeah, that makes sense because you typically have like the big numbers early, which means like maximum like 755 or something like that, or 644. Okay, so we've got this Docker entry point file, and the entry point is like before Docker gets down to running your command. It first is given a chance to go through an entry point script. And the command itself is provided as an argument to the entry point script. So what I'm doing in this is I'm saying, look, if the command is equal to app bin server, then before you actually exec it, and the exec is like run this as a process, go ahead and run the manage migrate command and skip any checks because those are a waste of time at this point. So that's what happens there. The reason that this works is when we get to the worker later with this Kamal setup, the worker is going to start after the web process. So we don't want the worker to begin before migrations have happened. So since we know the way Kamal is configured, that the web process is going to be the container that is started first, it is safe to run that migration. Like it's the thing that can run the migrations, and then everything downstream can rely on the fact that the database state is in a healthy state. And the way that this is going to work is that when we get to the actual Kamal configuration, we can essentially override the default command for what we're going to have for our workers. And so this will make, if that didn't make too much sense, I apologize. I'm trying to do my best to explain a lot of stuff all at once. But we will see the Kamal config, and that should clear it up in the future. Okay. So where are we at? I think we're at a point where maybe our Docker image works now. But how are we going to validate that? I think what we want to do, what do we want to do? I'm looking at the time. We've been going for an hour and a half. We're making good progress. I think maybe the last bit to do is probably a good stopping point. I would love to switch, get this done and be confident in it. Make sure local development continues to work and make sure that CI is not angry at us. Because if I push up right now, it's going to complain and say like, "What are you doing? You don't have that stuff working." So let's do this. Let's a little bit more cleanup we can do. We know that we've moved to UV. So right now, let's talk about files that we can get rid of. We can get rid of the requirements files. All of those files are now handled by UV. So let's ditch those. What else is there? We're going to have node modules moved to the front end, I think. We'll see that in a minute when we get the local development stuff working. I know for a fact that we can get rid of the runtime file that's only needed by Heroku. We're never deploying to Heroku again, so I'm going to ditch that. I got rid of the graphiz stuff. So this models.png file, get out of here. Not worth it. So we're now at looking through those. Looks pretty good. Oh, we can get rid of this virtual environment. We're going to use the .bnv. That's where UV likes to put stuff. Jeffrey, yes, that is exactly what's happening. Heroku abandonment. Not because I hate Heroku. Just to be really clear, Heroku is fine. Especially, in fact, if you want to go fast, like if you got a project idea and have, more money than time, Heroku is a great tool. So use Heroku. For this side project, I have more time than money, let's say. So we're going a different route. Let's just a little bit more work on myself. Also, like I like the idea of just having a simpler system and one that I own more of. John, procfile. I'm going to keep procfile. I'm not going to keep both of the procfiles. So I'm going to use continue to use procfile for local development. Yeah, classic economic balance for sure. And I'm not sure that this is like the wisest use of time, but I don't care. It's fun. I do a lot of this because I just enjoy it, and I like talking to folks like yourself. Okay, let's figure out how we're going to. Let's do. I think one thing I want to do is pull over the Docker Compose file and try and run that locally. See how that goes. See what blows up. It'd be great if we could see the JourneyInbox site and actually have a database that will work the way we expect to. I have a feeling there's going to be a setting or two that we need to tweak before we can do that. But I think we're at a stage now where I can commit again. And we'll say finish dockerfile. Bleh, that's probably a lie, but finish for now. And yep, Jeffrey, that's exactly it. I'm going to deploy to DigitalOcean, and I'm going to use Kamal, which creates a Docker daemon process on that VPS device, and we'll put my Docker image up there. So yeah. You nailed it, sir. So let's get the Docker Compose from over here. Apparently I already have it open. What? No, lies. Okay. This is not the one I want. Let's pull. Oh, it is the one I want. Kamal. It's the newest, like David Hennemeyer Hansen has been talking quite a bit about it. You can, I think it's kamal-deploy.com, maybe? You look and see. Kamal, oh, I was so close. kamaldeploy.org. So Basecamp, the company behind, 37 Signals is the company behind Basecamp. Basecamp is the product. They have been talking about how they're getting off the cloud and saving tons of money. Makes sense for them. And so they use this stuff on their bare metal machines, but we can also use it on VMs. So that's what I'm doing. It's really slick. I really have enjoyed it, and it's cool. It's a cool project in a lot of ways. It feels empowering too, which I think is really neat. So I've been digging it. Where am I going? Where am I going? I need to, oh, right. We were in the Docker Compose. So, okay. Newer swap file. No, delete it. Give me whatever's here. And we're going to create a Docker Compose file. Docker Compose YAML. Paste it in here. Yeah, YML. And this will be good. Then over here we can do Docker Compose up. And now that we have the Docker Compose file, oh yuck. Okay. Must be a string replacement that is looking. There must be a $sign in my .env file. So while that's coming up, it has to rebuild in Docker Compose rather than. I don't know why there's like a separate cache for Docker Compose versus Docker. I don't know why they're not unified, but they seem to be not unified. So we've got. I'm going to come into the env example file. There's probably a fake secret in here, and yeah, see that $sign? So for whatever reason, Docker Compose is like, oh, this is like a variable that you want to replace in your env file. So that's lame. I'm going to replace it with an underscore so it doesn't yell about it if I copy that again. Also, are there secrets I cannot share? I think there might be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, before I open this file, I'm going to put on my secret screen for a moment. And I'm going into the actual env file that I have. And I'm going to where that $sign is. I'm replacing it with an underscore. There was definitely a test key in here, but nothing else. And I really, you know what I need? There's a plugin that I saw that would be like really good for streaming, that'd be good to configure, where it works kind of like, so we got this, let's say we had this plugin installed, okay? The way it does, it's pretty smart about parsing, and it does, so what you would see, and what I would see as well, that would allow me to not have to like hide this stuff, is it parses certain file types that it knows are like a .env, that it can say like, oh, that's definitely a place where secrets are stored. And it can do this kind of game where it finds the value and is able to replace that with stars. It might even actually replace it with a constant number of stars, so you don't even know how long something is. I don't know. That part I'm not sure about. But I saw another streamer, TJ DeVries, is that his last name? TJ is awesome. What's his GitHub handle? TJ. Oh man, can't find it. YouTube TJ Breeze, I think. TJ, I think this is the guy. Yeah, this he's super cool. Like if you want to learn a ton about, he's one on the like NeoVim core team, just an all around pretty awesome streamer. So somebody worth checking out if you're into that sort of stuff. But anyway, I think I saw him use a plugin where if he was on stream, he didn't accidentally share some secrets, and that would be good. It would be able to let me eliminate entire screen transition, but not today. Okay, so, whoops. All right, cool. We've got, what did it do? Ooh, interesting. It started up. It used some values. It did try to create it ran the migrations. Are these new? Oh, these are new migrations. Look at this. Okay, so my local database was behind. I'd done a bunch of upgrading, and all of these other migrations had not run yet. So there's a bunch of, like, I know, you know, the way you can tell, obviously, or one clear indicator is that you would expect to see an 0001 migration. All of the migrations start with 1. And the fact that we're jumping to 3 and then 4 is indicative that it's working on an existing database. So it's done. We have in this config that Docker, that's not it, the Docker compose file we just added. You can see that we have a volume mount. And the volume mount goes from the local code that I have and goes ahead and puts it, but overlays it on top of /app. /app is the directory where all the code is in that Dockerfile config that I just did. So it's basically enabling me with Docker Compose to use the same exact data as I'm doing development with what would have been in the image. So now I should be able to go to port 8000 and see JourneyInbox. And there it is. Cool. Looking as good as ever and as simple as ever. Oh gosh, always forget. Always. Matt at testing. Okay, Matt at testing. And then create course. Cool. And the cool part about this change that we're about to deploy is, like, I'm about to switch from Postgres in production and SQLite in development to SQLite in development and SQLite in production. So it's going to be like we're closer to what production is actually like. So it's pretty cool. Also makes like backups super easy. There's a bunch of stuff that's really cool about this. Okay. So that's the Docker Compose. It worked. That was awesome. It was like work first try kind of thing. Although I spent all that time working on it for homeschool, so it wasn't like an unknown entity. But we did trim down a bunch of stuff. But it's nice to see it work, you know. So we can do. Whoops, what did I modify? Oh, I did. That was intentional. Actually, you can see. So I got that $signs changed to an underscore. So we can do these and say tested Docker image. Okay. Then, so that kind of checks off the first item here. Now, I expect make, which is going to run it locally without the Docker image. I expect that to fail. Or it might, yeah, it's okay. It did fail, good. So, and it failed because we got rid of a virtual environment. So previously I was running this with a virtual environment and says like, hey, I can't do that. And so what we're going to do differently is I'm going to stop using Heroku local. I was using Heroku because I already needed to use Heroku to actually do deployment. But it doesn't make sense to use the Heroku CLI just to do local development. That's kind of bonkers. But there is a tool that functions like Heroku, which can run a proc file. And the benefit of running a proc file is it allows you to run multiple processes at the same time. So I can have my front-end watcher that's like watching for CSS changes, as well as my gunicorn process running in parallel. We're going to use a tool called Honcho, which is like a Python version of Heroku local, which in turn, Heroku local is a derivative or like a copy of a tool from the Ruby ecosystem called Foreman, which is where the procfile concept I think originally came from. So we need to add Honcho. So we want to do uv add into dev dependency, and we want to add Honcho. So you'll see we added a Honcho version. Now it's available. And in fact, I'm going to go to my procfile over here. You can see what I've got. Nope, that's not what I wanted. Makefile runs Honcho. So we want this line now. And we're going to go to our makefile and replace Heroku local with uv run Honcho start and then a procfile. Okay, So that will run the honcho command. And then we need to modify, we need to modify our proc file. And we need to use some similar stuff that's over here. I think it's all going to be the same. Actually, we haven't done Huey yet, so it's not going to be the same yet. But I think we can do this and this. Check what's different. Oh, I kept the bind in here just so that it's a little bit closer to the Docker file. So we get rid of this. We're not ready to use Huey yet. We'll get to that later. This release command was a Heroku specific thing. This is what, that was the hook that I told you could use earlier before your application went out. So that's where we were doing migrations, but we don't need to do that. I'm going to run the watch command that I have in my package.json. And then this gives us the chance now to delete this dev version. That's duplicative. So there you go. So John, earlier you were asking about, or can we get rid of the proc file? So now if we run this, you can see Honcho starts up. Honcho is pretty cool. It identifies itself as system, and it tells you what processes it's going to start. And then just like Heroku local, it's got logging separated by whatever prefix that was. So we had a web and a front end. The web one is our actual unicorn process. The front end one is the thing that's watching for CSS changes. And then if you stop it, it'll sends the sig term to both of those, and they stop. Okay, so that will be. Is there anything else for local development here? We've got. I guess I can run make coverage, make sure that's working. Make coverage is one that runs actually through the migration, so that takes a little bit. And then also collects coverage. Let's take a little longer to run. Still, that worked. So thankfully, we don't have that many targets in here anymore. So I think everything's good. We already ran this test one earlier. So that checks off. That's the ensure local development works. That's cool. Let's say add this stuff and say fix local development. Okay. And then one thing to kind of polish it off for the night is let's go into GitHub. Well, actually, we'll do one more thing after this too. So we're going to come in here and we're going to, I'm going to copy shamelessly. There's a lot of copying tonight, to be honest. Sorry if it's like too much, like, whoa, he's going too fast because of that. That's just the way it has to be in this case. So we're using, well, this one's using an old version of Ubuntu, but what it does have is all of this, I did all of this configuration stuff that I can change here. So you can see I've got, the way we were doing this is had to do, again, the complexity of Graph is, we had to install these development packages. We had to use pip. We were doing this check level stuff. So I'm going to take these versions of the steps and we'll go over them in a moment. We don't need make docs. That's not a real target for this app. And we'll paste it in here and then we'll just do a kind of compare between the two. And I simplified some of the naming. Didn't really need some redundancy here. So there's the actions checkout gets the code like it says. We're bumping up to version 4. So we can get rid of that step. This was using setup Python previously, but since we're switching to UV, that will do the Python setup for us. So we can get rid of that stuff. And then we don't need to install OS packages, and we don't need to install Python packages. That's going to come from the UV sync thing. So let's get rid of that. And then we're not doing MyPy type checking. We have the same make coverage target. And then we've got the same deploy check configuration. Are they identical? This one has secure SSL redirect on. I think I got rid of that. Okay. Oh, no, I didn't. I haven't gotten rid of it yet. Okay. This is the old one, right? Yeah. We need to keep that for now. We'll get rid of it later. And I'll go into why. But that should be everything that makes CI continue to run. Yeah. So hopefully, fixing CI is always a pain in the butt. But fix CI. I think that should do it though. So let's check that. Let's push all this. Okay. So all of the code changes we did for this evening are now up and pushed at the root. Let's go to GitHub Actions, make sure it actually passes, and so I'm not dealing with some broken stuff. And then we'll go to the pull request for a minute, and I'm going to show some things that we're going to get rid of. Oh no, come on, what happened? Psycho PG binary, boo. Can't see the whole message. Or the current platform. Okay. Well, this is going to complicate the migration later, but we'll get rid of it for now. So in my UV, in the pipe project toml, we have this Psycho PG binary. And this is because we are running with Postgres. This is the Postgres bindings, basically. And we're not going to need that for the actual like long-term use of the application. Where we will need it, though, is for when it comes to what? When we have to migrate the data out of the Postgres database, this is I will need to bring this back and figure out how to resolve that. Because the way I did the migration for the last app, the homeschool app, this worked actually pretty well. Is I got like a database dump out. Like I did a dump into, where did I do this exactly? Yeah, okay. I got a dump of the database. I have some instructions on this whole migration that I did for homeschool because I knew I was going to have to do it for here too. And I got that and like hooked it up to Docker Compose. And then I hooked up a Django management command and did a dump data command. And it took all of the data in from my Postgres database and dumped it into a big JSON file. And then I switched the driver from Postgres to SQLite. And then from there, I did a load data command and then took that JSON file and put it into a SQLite file. And that worked surprisingly well because I didn't have a ton of data. And I have even less data for this app. So that's the strategy I'll use. But we don't need to do that today. I don't remember how I was working around the fact that I was dealing with a binary. I guess I could fix CI so that it has like, yeah, I could fix that later, but whatever, it's fine. I don't know why. What I don't understand is like why CI is complaining. Like what is that message again? Can't be. It doesn't have a source distribution or wheel for the current platform. Is it saying like there's no source distribution for? Oh, maybe because I'm on. Check it out. It used Python 3.13. Okay, maybe I can keep this if we pin the right version. Psycho PG. This is Psycho. This is the new one. They stopped with calling it PsychoPG2, which I think is cool. And then we go to the download files. PsychoPG3, Pi3, none. What does it support? Uploaded 310. Okay, I don't know. I don't know what this is built for. I thought there'd be more stuff here, frankly. And it says it supports 313. I don't know, man. Whatever. We'll deal with it later. So for now, UV remove PsychoPG. Is that gonna be enough? Yeah. Okay. Good enough for now. Temporarily remove PsychoPG. This will be a future map problem. So this should run and in theory get through CI this time. That's my hope. I think. Assuming it does that, so what's next? Where can we go from here? I think I know that Dependabot is not working yet for UV. Frankly, it's just gonna be annoying because it's going to create the way it manifests is it can detect that it needs to change pyproject.toml, but it cannot detect, it does not currently know how to update uv.lock. So that's irritating because I don't want to commit just the update to pyproject.toml. The uv.lock modification should go with it to do like a, what's the right term? Hermetic. I don't know, that's probably too strong a word. Hermetic has a very specific meaning to some people. To get that full transitive closure in like a stable state, you want to have this stuff together. So because of that, it's actually going to be irritating to have package updates that are being like, I can't apply these. So I think what I want to do, oh good, that worked, is actually go to the Dependabot config and disable it for now. I think I can do this to say like no packages basically. To do use Dependabot, yep, that's right. When it supports UV. And let's go ahead and get the issue because I'm gonna need to know it. GitHub Dependabot UV. I got it should be right at the top. Wait, no, there was like a GitHub, not on the Astral side. This is something that Dependabot has to do, and GitHub has to do, not the Astral side. That's not the right issue. There it is, Dependabot core. I think this is the one. Whatever. Having this reference enough for now, and say see that. I think that should do it. And say disable Dependabot. I don't know if this will automatically close all the current PRs. Let's find out. Or it might yell at me at like, maybe it won't let you have an updates section that's empty. That's also totally possible. It might be like, nope, no good. Because I think part of GitHub Actions is it does like a sanity check against Dependabot somewhere. And technically I should probably be pinning to 312 because I'm running 312 and planning to deploy to 312. So my CI is lying a little bit, but it's probably good enough because I often run the test locally too. So if my tests are running locally and it's running on CI, then I guess I'm covering 2 versions of Python. All right, so with that change though, whoops, something failed. Yeah, it didn't like me. Okay, well, screw you guys. Yeah, all right, fine. I don't want to delete the file outright. I have to. Okay. Disable Pendabot. This is super old. 2008. Yeah, there's no way. Yeah, that's just wrong. Oh, it's fine. I'll just delete the file for now and make it go away totally. And we'll add it back later. Not really the way I wanted to do that, but I don't want to fight with a YAML schema parser or a YAML schema validator. Okay. Refresh. Okay. And that should pass. So it didn't get rid of these. So let's take this stuff and just close for now. All these are going to be in conflict anyway. So it's fine. Because those requirements files don't exist anymore. We're just kind of cleaning house from some stuff that we didn't do previously. Because it's been a while since I've worked on JourneyInbox. So close this. And then we will merge the pre-commit one. That update should have been applied a long time ago. Close that. Almost there. And then we'll talk a little bit about what's next. Once we get this little bit cleaned up. Great, merge. Yay. And pull that. Geo. Okay. What was on this side? What was this thing? Start on this too. Oh man, it's got conflicts. No way. Get out of here. Yeah, that was not a priority. Okay. Come back. Good. We'll come back to some better version of this. Get it out. All right. So where are we now? And where are we going? I don't want to go to Kamal yet until I do this switch to a better, yeah, it's a better tool for managing environment stuff. I like it better. The nice part about it is that it combines, it puts the environment setting and the default value, it pairs them together, which you can see with Django environs it doesn't do that. If we go over to the settings file, you can see the way this works is you have all this config at the top, and then you like pull things out of it later. And with the tool that we want to switch to, you would use the environ thing. It's still an env object thing, but you'd say like env.stir, and this is a bad example because it wouldn't have a default, but if it did have a default, you'd say, I think it's default, and then you give it some value like that. So it keeps your, it's better about like saying what kind of data type it is, because if it's not a stir, if it's a bool, you do bool or int or whatever. And then it also keeps default values right there with it. So it's pretty nice in the way that there's locality on the configuration information. So I want to switch to that tool. Then we can start setting up some other preconditions that are needed before we can actually, the order of this is not right. So technically we need to do this earlier and this earlier. That's kind of the sequence. So we can switch to this environs tool. Then we can add a health check endpoint. So one of the things that Kamal will do is, and one of the things that's actually really cool about it is that it's not just putting your GUnicorn process in a container. There's actually a proxy that sits in front of it. It's called Kamal Proxy. It's like purpose built for this. And the reason that Kamal Proxy exists is that it's the thing listening on web traffic at the public port to the outside world on 443 for your secure traffic. And then it is routing inside of a Kamal network space. It is, that's a Docker network. It routes to either your one version of an app or another version of an app. And it's able to do a 0 downtime deploy. So it's got your one version of your app. And when you bring up the next one, it's able to turn that one on. But in order to know that it turns this one, it has to know when this particular new version is ready. So there's a health check endpoint that your own container processing can basically say yep, I'm ready. And that's what the Kamal proxy will use to switch on putting out the latest version without interruption, which is great. But in order to make that work, the container has to be able to advertise, yes, I'm ready. So we've got to do that. As I said at the beginning of the stream, we cannot use cron in the way I want to use it. So we're going to switch to Huey, which is a really cool, simple background tool. Then I think we're finally ready to put in the Kamal configuration, and we have to do some secrets management stuff along with that. So those will pair together. So that's where we're going. I think next week I should be streaming. I don't foresee any reason I wouldn't be, but I've been wrong before. I just want to say thank you all for tuning in. Hopefully this was fun. As I'm doing a cloud migration, we got through quite a bit tonight, and hopefully you learned something along the way. If you can do me a favor and leave me a like, thumbs up, that'd be good. Can I do this anymore? Is that still working? No. Oh, I just look like a weirdo. Yay. What the heck? There it is. Oh, okay, it's thumbs up. Stupid Mac stuff. Thanks for joining in. Hopefully this was fun. Take care. See you later.